Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pitts. Ukraine War news update, second part thereof for the 27th of June 2024. Because I had an extra bit of an analysis in my first news piece, it went on for a bit longer, so I'm going to try and whiz through this as quickly as possible for you. We're going to start with Ukraine. So this is a military aid and equipment video. Ukraine has received a new tranche of 1.9 billion euros from the EU under the Ukraine Facility Assistance Programme, reports the Ministry of Finance. I presume that's the stuff connected to the frozen assets, the profit from frozen assets, and hopefully that's going to be put towards military equipment procurement, as indeed we were led to believe. Now, NATO member states are discussing Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg's proposal for a 40 billion euro a year funding plan for Ukraine, but some allies remain sceptical. According to Bloomberg, several NATO countries are hesitant to commit to multi-year military aid expenditures, with some preferring to maintain current support levels without formalising specific figures. So that's going to be a challenge for the incoming Mark Rutte to sort out, although he's not going to be in there until October, so there's quite a lot of time for Jens Stoltenberg to iron out those creases there. Now, here is a bit of footage of a Ukrainian MiG-29 pilot launching AASM hammer bombs. I just thought I'd show you this because actually it's a fairly impressive video here in terms of how vertical they get before releasing those bombs. Pretty incredible. And then that gives the bombs extra range because they're going upwards before they're eventually coming down, so you're going to get just squeeze out a little more range on that. You see that with a lot of these unguided rockets being released, right, where the helicopters and jets will lift their noses up to fire them off, but it's the fact that this is almost vertical that I found quite surprising. But anyway, I don't know if those were the exact two bombs that hit that area, that command post in Belgorod, I think it was, or no, it was across the border in from Sumy in Kursk. But anyway, that does appear to be the same that same strike there, but I don't know whether those are the two bombs that were released in that first bit of footage, but I thought that was interesting to see. Right, US Assistant Secretary Bush confirms that they are on target to reach production of 55,000 155mm shells per month by the end of the summer. That's really quite impressive. So they were starting on around 14,000 and they're hoping to get up to 100,000 eventually. But they seem to be on target at the moment. 55,000 imminently is a huge increase from 14,000 that we did see. So really good news that the US industrial military complex is working towards achieving what would align with the strategic vision of the US in supporting Ukraine. German aid to Ukraine. By the way, German aid to Ukraine did reach out to me because I said I'm not really sure what's going on with these different contracts that the Germans are throwing out, or it's different contracts that they are signing with people like Rheinmetall and Diehl and Nammo in order to get these artillery ammunition pieces, these shells. And there was this 350,000 shell contract that they signed, but they've only produced 5,000 of them. And what's going on there? And German aid said, hey, I just saw the video. Okay, here's my explanation. We already have an existing framework contract which contains 350,000 155mm shells with Diehl Defence and Nammo. A framework contract is not actually a real contract. It's basically there. So Germany is reserving the right to call up this amount of ammunition for a predefined price. So when the price of a 155mm shell is right now, let's say 6,400 euros for that one shell, right? And we have a framework contract for the next 10 years, we will pay only 6,400 per shell in 7 years, even if the standard price is 8,000 per shell by then. Actually called up, so really contracted, of that 350,000 shells framework contract were only 5,000 shells, as mentioned. That means that we now have 345,000 shells available via this framework contract. Of course, it doesn't mean they've paid for them already. It means that they've pre-agreed a price. So that's why he was saying yesterday, I don't know if you remember, but price per shell was quite high, but that's because it's over a long period and they have to take into account the inflation of shells. So you pay a little bit if you're going to order them right now. You're going to pay a bit extra, but actually, if you order them in 9 years' time, then you're going to pay a lot less because inflation would have gone beyond what the price would be. So presume it takes into account some kind of average over that time. That doesn't mean that the ammunition gets produced or that the ammunition gets paid for by Germany. It's just a contract which guarantees a special price and volume for us when we want to buy something. So interesting bit of explanation there. Thanks to Germany and to Ukraine, who goes on to say here, from the end of 2024 or by the beginning of 2025 at the latest, Ukraine will receive a total of 54 RCH. These are remote controlled howitzer, 155mm howitzers, which will be paid for by the German government. The estimated cost of the purchases for Ukraine is around 600 million euros. The delivery of at least 36 RCH 155s is scheduled to be completed by 2027, while the expected end of the delivery of the remaining 18 is not yet publicly known. The RCH 155 consists of an unmanned and fully automatic artillery gun module, which is integrated on a Boxer chassis. I was under the impression that it was built with the ability to be remotely controlled, but that they hadn't sorted out that that ability yet. But I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how many crew work in there and how it works. This is, I always thought it was a much smaller piece of kit, but actually it is pretty much the same size as other self-propelled guns. So that is the RCH that Ukraine are going to be getting. Indeed, the UK are going to be working with these SPGs after they phase out the AS-90. Well, it pretty much has been phased out. The last few of them might end up going to Ukraine imminently. Who knows? But it depends on the delivery status for the RCH 155s that we would get going forward. Anyway, Denmark is to allocate nearly $5 million to restore Ukraine's energy infrastructure in Kharkiv and Mykolaiv oblasts. So if you remember, Denmark is heavily involved in the regional reconstruction of Mykolaiv oblast. So that's why they are particularly looking at that. But obviously Kharkiv itself has its very desperate needs with regard to energy. Denmark became the first sponsor of the Energy Support Fund for Ukraine, making a contribution to the restoration of the Ukrainian energy sector back in April 2022, said the Danish energy minister. Now, the Ukrainian Navy, the UKS Cherkasy and the UKS Chernihiv, previously HMS Shoreham, so her or now His Majesty's Service Shoreham, and HMS Grimsby, partaking in one of their first naval exercises with NATO in the Sea Breeze 2024 exercise off the coast of Scotland. So this is really cool. There are these older mine hunters that are going to take part in a NATO exercise. These two ships are participating in the exercise along with the Ukrainian Navy personnel providing the battle staff to conduct command and control, C2, of the exercise task group. This group includes standing NATO Mine Countermeasures Group 1, a 3-ship flotilla led by the German Navy's Elbe-class replenishment vessel FGS Donau. Sea Breeze 2024 is centered on enhancing Ukraine's MCM capability within a wider context of building maritime security and stability. Is that mine countermeasures? The exercise mission is about focusing on a progressively trained and prepared Ukrainian MCM task group staff capable of tactical planning for MCM operations with allocated forces in line with NATO standards. Rear Admiral Thomas Waller, US Navy submariner posted as Commander Submarines NATO at Marcom, said at the exercise's opening ceremony in Glasgow on the 24th. Sea Breeze 2024 exercises run by the US 6th Fleet and the Ukrainian Navy, hosted on this occasion by the British Royal Navy and supported by NATO Allied Maritime Command, MARCOM, which commands and controls NATO's 4 standing naval forces, including this grouping. UK Defence Journal was allowed a tour aboard the ships a few days ago, so we might see some more images coming through that. So that's brilliant. That's just destroyed my ears and probably yours as well. Anyway, there's a very loud engine of a of a mine hunting ship that has been refurbished and brought up to spec, one would have thought. Now, this has led to people to suggest, so Intel Schizo here say, would be nice if the US Navy actually follows through and gives Ukraine some of these mothballed Oliver Hazard Perry frigates. Now, what's he talking about? So back in 2018, this article was in the War Zone, US to offer surplus Oliver Hazard Perry class frigates to Ukraine, according to reports. The US is looking to offer the country an unknown number of currently mothballed Oliver Hazard Perry frigates in an attempt to help Kyiv bolster its presence in the Black Sea and possibly around the entrance to the increasingly contested Sea of Azov. If Ukraine agrees to receive the ships, the transfer would occur through the Excess Defence Property Programme, which commonly funnels surplus US military gear to foreign allies. Of course, that's the excess. That's the here it's EDP, but is it EDA? Excess Defence Authority, I think, program. Anyway, although the ships may come free of charge, there will be a cost to bring them up to whatever standard Ukraine and US have in mind. Before the US Navy controversially passed over returning the retired Perry class frigates, it still had to active service. It figured they could be brought back to an operational state to serve in rudimentary interdiction and basic sea control roles at a relatively low cost. Meanwhile, other navies around the world have spent far more money successfully upgrading their second-hand Perry class frigates with enlarged hangar bays, updated sensors and combat systems, refreshed mechanics, and vertical launch missile systems. If Ukraine were to go this route, the revamped frigates would be the most advanced and capable assets in their fleet. Now, of course, much of their fleet was left behind in Crimea once that was annexed, and then some of the rest of it was destroyed when Russia invaded. So this is still a kind of, I guess, an open idea. Don't know whether it is particularly sensible, though, putting a lot of effort into training up sailors to crew ships like this when they can't take them through the Bosphorus Straits due to the Montreux Convention that Turkey has in place, that 1931 convention, whereby neither warring nation, Russia and Ukraine in this case, on the Black Sea, can access the Black Sea with extra military kit through the straits there. So I don't know that, although it sounds great to say, why doesn't the US follow through on this? I just don't think it'd be a great use of resources at the moment, because all these ships would be hanging around elsewhere. Okay, it'd be getting them prepared and ready to go in the event of a summation to the war, conclusion to the war. And so that, there's a bit of proactive thinking and training and getting stuff in place, rather than waiting for the end of the war and then say, oh, you need some naval vessels now. Montreux Convention is now no longer relevant. The war has ended. You can get your ships through the straits. Oh, you've got no ships. Okay, apart from those two mine hunters. So, there is a call, I guess, to get training started now, and those sort of things provided. Anyway, SBU's uncovered a criminal network selling trophy weapons to criminals. So this is something people have been worried about the black market supply of weapons that end up coming into Ukraine. The organizers were detained in Kyiv, Mykolaiv and Lviv regions. Russian grenade launchers, Kalashnikov rifles and more than 20,000 rounds of ammunition were seized from the suspects. Now, the good news here is that this is none of the Western weapons coming through, at least what we can see there. This looks like older Soviet stuff that's ended up on the black market, so nothing to worry about, it appears, from with regard to javelins and whatnot. In one sense, it's good that you see news like this, because it shows that the Ukrainians are working hard to stop weapons getting into the wrong hands. There are going to be so many weapons and so much ammunition flying around Ukraine right now and for the next however long, that this is definitely going to be a worry. It's why the EU and the US have groups inside Ukraine monitoring weapons and how they get handed over, how they are being sort of used. So even though this is bad news that this is happening, like we know it's going to happen anyway, so it's good news that it's being found out and things are happening. on that front. Okay, Western sanctions, says Noel reports, have failed to undermine Russian weapons production, according to a report by the Royal Institute of the United Armed Forces, cited by NBC News. In 2021, Russia produced 56 Kh-101 cruise missiles, but last year production increased to approximately 460. The stockpile of Iskander ballistic missiles also grew from around 50 to 180. Since the beginning of the war, the production of 152mm artillery shells increased 5.3 times, Grad MLRS 15.2 times, Uragan shells 6.1 times, Kh-101 cruise missiles 7.5 times, and 9 M73 Iskander rockets more than 3 times. So it appears that Russia is well able to produce many more missiles than it was previously producing, and indeed ordnance in general. Question is, one, is that definitely true? Two, if that's true, does that explain maybe the lack of some missiles that are being used, I think, at the moment compared to previously, so on and so forth. So just trying to get some clarity in this fog of war concerning what Russia can actually do, and how do we know whether they are definitely doing this, and if they are doing this, are they not using them as much as they were? I mean, is my claim correct there? And if they're not using them, what else explains the fact that they're not using them as much, considering they are making more of them? And are they stockpiling them for some devastatingly huge attack at some point? Did they have a lack of ability to fire them because of the launchers, whether that be airplanes or ships, so on and so forth? Right, finally, Kyiv Independent reports Russia has sent around 10,000 immigrants who recently received citizenship to join the military fighting in Ukraine, said Investigative Committee head Alexander Bastroikin at a press conference today. Now, let's read this, because good old Kyiv Independent articles are pretty short. Russia has sent around 10,000 immigrants who recently received citizenship to join the military fighting in Ukraine, officials says. Now, the thing that jumps out at me is the very vague use of the term recently, and that kind of annoys me. So Russia has sent around 10,000 immigrants who recently received citizenship. Is that in the last month, in the last 3 months, in the last 6 months, in the last year, in the last 2.5 years? Is that 10,000 this last month, or is that 10,000 over the course of the war? So without that clarification, it's kind of meaningless, other than to say immigrants are definitely a component of the war effort in terms of this crypto mobilization, or I'd say klepto mobilization. I think they're kind of stealing these people, and we'll see why. So the individuals are reportedly in Ukraine to, quote, dig trenches and build fortifications, Bastroikin said, implying that they might not be directly involved in combat operations. The 10,000 individuals are out of 30,000 new citizens authorities have reportedly, scare quotes, caught, who shirked their obligation to register for military service, he added. In October 2023, Bastroikin suggested that individuals who recently received Russian passports but declined to serve in the military could have their citizenship revoked. Military service is mandatory in Russia for all men aged 18 to 27, although Russia has vastly widened the scope of who it seeks to see in the military after huge losses suffered in the war against Ukraine. President Putin signed a decree on March 31st to conscript 150,000 citizens as part of the regular occurring spring conscription campaign, but conscripts are not officially allowed to be sent to fight abroad. Russia has also sought to replenish its military ranks through other means, including the recruitment of migrants and new Russian citizens, likely hoping to avoid changing the rules on conscript deployment or a repeat of the unpopular mobilization drive in the autumn of 2022. Migrant workers have also been sent to occupied parts of Ukraine, ostensibly for construction work. However, after they arrive, reports allege that their passports are confiscated and they are pressured to go fight. Russia has also attempted to recruit foreigners directly from countries in the surrounding regions, such as Kazakhstan and Armenia. So something to watch out for. This is evidently a ploy of theirs to try and get people who have broken rules in some way, either on a kind of trumped up charges or like minimal breaking of regular rules, and then they just hoik them off to the war. And then you had the added benefit that if those people die in a war, there's far less likelihood of family members being Russian citizens who are able to get up in arms about that. So where indigenous Russian fighters might die in 1,000, and then you have all sorts of people around Russia as part of your population getting up in arms and protesting against Putin and the war. In the case of having immigrant fighters dying, you're not going to get that, and that's the added benefit for Russia as far as they would see it. Okay, that's enough for me. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. Take care. Speak soon. Toodle pips.